Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is part 3 of reacting to the Bela Fleck interview, The Journey of a Banjo Virtuoso by Rick Beato. It's been a great interview so far. If you want to see the first 2 parts, there's a playlist on my channel that you can find. You can watch all 3 parts in that playlist, but let's just get into it.
The positions and play real music. So I find it to be real helpful.
Now, we talked about Charlie Parker and Bach and,
Yeah.
and the kind of the similarity between the two.
He feels similar to me, yeah. The logic of Charlie Parker's lines and the way he gets through chord changes, it feels like it couldn't be any other note. You know. Now he also, when you study it more closely, you see all of the subtlety in it. It's not da 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 da. He's got a lot of phrasing in there as well that really gives it a lot of class and interest and blue notes and different things. But still, I think there's something very marked about that. And I've heard of other players. I'm thinking of Jimmy Rainey. You know,
Yes, of course.
He felt like Bach to me when he soloed over jazz changes. It was like the lines were very much could have come out of a partita. It was just so perfect, and he could play unending lines through any jazz song with elegance and beautiful voice leading and great intervallic leaps that were always lovely. And also the other thing about Bach is there's just so much of it. If you think about somebody who's outputting genius stuff from, you know, the first we know of, and
Yeah.
all the way to his death, every day, more and more and more. It's like if you haven't heard any good Bach, it's because you haven't looked, because there's so much stuff nobody knows about even.
That is true. Bach wrote in so many different genres that there's basically everything you could want there, other than, say, an opera. Bach never wrote any operas, but he did write some cantatas, I think, which are kind of mini operas, like the Coffee Cantata, I think is functionally like a small opera. But yeah, he wrote, solo stuff. He wrote orchestral things, concertos, choral music, and all the religious stuff. And yeah, he wrote so much and so diverse.
And so much stuff. So inspiring cat, for sure.
Really?
How do you work on new things? Is there a challenging thing that you're working on, or are you kind of constantly reviving things from past, that you want to play at concerts?
Well, sometimes I'm practicing things and it turns into like developing a technique, trying to find a way to make something, give me more options for either composing or improvising with, But usually it's very much based on what I have next, what's coming at me. And usually I've kept my schedule so full of challenging things that I have to be ready. So the first record I did with Chick Corea, I'm amazed I can say the first record, because now there's going to be 3 that we got to do together, but he's my hero for so many musical reasons and personal. He was just a beautiful guy. But I remember we finished the first record, which was called The Enchantment. We put the instruments in the cases. I put mine in the cases. He immediately went into the other room and got out the score for the next thing he was going to work on. He didn't even go home and didn't even want to go get a drink or go get a meal. He was like, "All right, Bela, nice job." Off to work.
I wonder why he got so good.
And I've always loved that. I've always thought that was so badass. So like when I get done with the gig, Victor would always say, "I don't understand why you practice after gigs. Like after a show is done, I'll go to the back of the bus or I'll go back in the dressing room and I'll put on the metronome. It's like my hands are working better than they've worked all day. The things are really flowing, and there's things that I didn't get that night that I'm disappointed in, or I've got something coming up next week that I got to be ready for." And yeah, when you've been playing you've already done a sound check for an hour and a half and a 3-hour show, your hands are working good.
Yeah.
And
I think this demonstrates that to get to this level of skill with anything, not just music, but pretty much anything, like to get best in the world, groundbreaking, genius level like Bela is, you kind of have to be a workaholic. I mean, how many people would go play for 4.5 hours for their job and then go practice afterwards because their hands are working better? Very few people. And if you have that level of dedication to it, you're going to get that good. And that's more than anything, that is the secret of his success with the instrument, is just being willing to work harder at it than anyone else. It's super inspiring.
your brain is working in a way it doesn't the rest of the day. So I always like that. I always like having something else I'm working on. And I think that's gotten me through a lot of touring traveling because it's not just what I'm doing that day, because that becomes tiresome. No matter what you're doing, you're playing with the best musicians, you're playing the same set every day for 6 months, a year. You start to lose that enthusiasm, or, you know, you could do it in your sleep, basically. You don't need to practice. But if you've got something coming, then you can be doing two things at once, and they're both interesting. Then when you go back to the thing you're doing now, it's more interesting because of the stuff you're practicing for the other thing, and then you've got something to look forward to. So I find it to be a lot of fun. Now, I do have kids, as I know you do, and so that's definitely changed the practicing thing. So more and more, it's desperation practice. Uh-oh. I got home and I didn't touch the banjo for a week, and now I got to play the concerto number 3 or whatever. Or I'm going to play with, or the Fleck tones when we got back together this year, or and all the different things. They all require more rehearsal than they used to for me.
Well, as you get older and you have this body of work, and then you're constantly going back, you're playing different things. There's so much stuff to kind of remember.
It's nice if you've done it before, though, because it is going to come back quicker than you think. Can't have ever have done this. That couldn't have been me. But then 2 days later, it's like the memory, the muscle memory, the brain memory, the hand memory, everything starts to come back, and then you can do it. But if it's something brand new, there's a lot more work to do just to be ready, because you don't know whether you've got it really or not till you get with the other musicians. And usually I find that I'm over-practiced, but sometimes not. And you can only get there by learning on the bandstand, as they say in the jazz world, which...
Like, this isn't related to what he's saying, but if you look, this isn't a great frame for it, but look how much his neck is cranked back, because I guess you have to do that to get the action low with that high of a bridge, but the neck is really cranked back, and I don't know, that's just cool for me. It's just an aspect of his tone is having a bridge that high, and in order to keep the action low with a bridge that high, you have to kind of crank the neck back. It's cool, is all I'm trying to say.
I've luckily been able to do a lot with Chick and with the Zakir as being some of my heroes that have a lot of information that I don't have. Being around it starts to soak up, and you soak up enough of it to be able to converse with them. And if they're kind, because they could plow you under if they felt like it, that's not their intention as musicians. They want to have a conversation, so they're going to come speak some of your language too. And that's very, very kind.
The first time you played with Chick, were you nervous?
Yeah.
What was that like?
The first time we played together was, I invited him to play on a couple of tracks of my album, and he said yes, and I was surprised, honestly. But I'd met him at the Grammys, and he was super nice in that setting. The Flecktones and I were there. Victor and Future Man were there and with me, and we just ran into him, and we were all just hanging out. That's as you do there, because you end up in a big room, big ballroom full of people that play all kinds of music, and pretty soon you find the people that have something in common with you. And so Chick and Gail were there, and we ended up sort of sitting together and hanging, and it was real nice. So I said, I'll take a shot at this. I said, hey, sent a note through his management. Is there any chance you would consider playing on a track or two for me? Sure, no problem. Oh my God. So I came to LA, and I got to record 3 tracks with him, and it was just, I couldn't believe that. It was, for one thing, it's one of those things, again, where he transcends what you would have hoped it would be. It's so much better than I had imagined it might be. Playing with him he lifted you up. Earl Scruggs was said to do that a lot. When he would walk into a room even, people would just start playing better. But so after that, I was never going to bother him again. I was like, okay, I got to play with Chick Corea. He played on my record. I'm never going to bother him. But then he got in touch with me about doing some duo stuff. And that's the story. But the first time, it was a very charged moment. It was at Mad Hatter Studios, learning music with your hero and my music, and him having to learn it, and me throwing it at him, and just a very spontaneous. But when you're in that pressure cooker, people tend to deliver. So I was well rehearsed, and he was just great. He was just good enough that he didn't have to be. So it worked out to be a really nice recording.
You have another record coming out that...
Yeah, we did a last project together before he passed that's going to be coming out. Yeah.
And that's Remembrance. Their third records. They have the Enchantment, and then 2, which is their live recordings, and then Remembrance, which has like my favorite cover art of all time, because it's an upside down banjo, and then it has piano keys all around it like a dandelion, and they're all flying off. It's so cool. Whoever thought that up was... I love that album cover so much. It looks great. But yeah, those 3 records, all those are phenomenal.
It's poignant.
Yeah.
He was a real friend, and a hero and a friend. It's really cool that I I got to know him that way. The last project was we were out on tour playing, doing duo stuff, and we both brought new music to the last tour, which was something we really kind of needed to do because we've been playing that Enchantment record for 12 years, something like that. But we would only get together twice a year for a week or two, so it wasn't like the music was worn out. We were,
Right.
But still, it was time. You know, the years had just marched on. So we both showed up with tunes and played them on the tour. And at the end of the tour, I said, I'll come to Florida and we can lay them down. He said, we just did. Because he knew that the live thing was going to have something that, and also, I'm not going to say he was lazy, but he just didn't see the point. He just felt like we had done it.
You played it.
And yeah, it's there. He said, you're the producer, go listen. If you don't think it's there, we can talk about you coming down. But I went and listened during the pandemic and discovered it was there. And then we did some collaborating during the pandemic where he would send me music and I'd put banjo on it and I'd send him stuff and he would do it. And we actually came up with maybe some more ornate stuff than we would have done if we'd been rehearsing it up because it was all like a chart. It sounds like we're playing it together.
Is that anything that eventually will come out, you think?
Yeah, that stuff's going to come out this spring. And I'm really happy that
Pretty sure that's Remembrance that he's talking about there.
before he passed, we actually broke into a whole other musical area. We kind of shook up that duo and kicked it upstairs. I think we really covered some new ground this time. So I'm proud of that. I really am.
If I asked you if there were people that you wish you could have played with, who are some of the people that you wish you could have played with?
You know, as time goes on, it's not so much that I want to play with them. I just would like to hear them or maybe know them a little bit. I don't feel like it has to be me anymore, you know. But yeah, you know, going back, it would have been great to go sit and watch Bach write, or go sit in a Smoky Club and watch Coltrane play, or Charlie Parker play. Or I mean, there's some jazz players that I'm, of course, love. Herbie, Pat Metheny, you know, so many great players that I haven't ever done anything with. And if that happened, that would be great. But it doesn't need to.
Right.
It would be lovely.
You're
Because I'm
content
such a fan. Yeah.
Content being a fan.
Yeah, and you know, to tell you the truth, the connection Chick and I had was very rhythmic based because of the way he played, and maybe someone like Keith, you know, or Herbie, maybe we wouldn't be as well suited as Chick and I were. So, but I think it would be incredible to play with those guys. There's so many great players on all the instruments. You never run out of stuff to do. But I like doing things that haven't been done whenever possible. So if there's a direction, a combination, I like playing with people from different parts of the world. I like trying to find a way for the banjo to sit in a classical situation. And, that's kind of my mission statement.
What's something that music that you would listen to that people might not think you would enjoy?
I love Barbra Streisand.
Okay.
I know Pat Metheny said he really liked the Carpenters.
Okay.
You know?
What's wrong with either of them?
No,
Nope.
but you don't see the similarity
Rick coming in with the judginess.
between my own work and them.
Right.
Joni Mitchell, we were talking about, you have had a great experience with her, getting to know her a bit. I never met her, but boy, some of her records have been really important to me.
When you were growing up, did your
Didn't Jocko play with Joni Mitchell, or am I thinking of someone else?
parents, you're from New York, did your parents play any particular music that you really connected with?
You mean like on the stereo? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, listen to music at home.
So my mother and my father split up when I was around 1 or 2, and my father was not on the scene. I didn't meet him until I was in my 40s.
Okay.
So, but he gave me all these names. He named me after all of these classical composers: Bela Anton Leos Fleck. So Bela Bartok.
Oh, hold on, let's see if I can guess these. So Bela Bartok, you just said that. Anton Dvorak and Leos. It's Janacek, right? Leos Janacek.
Anton Dvorak, Anton Chekhov,
Oh.
and Leos Janacek. So some pretty main
Okay, so I got one out too. It was the wrong Anton, I guess.
composers, really.
Yeah.
So he wasn't around to pass on his love of that music, but he gave me those names. And then, and my brother, unfortunately, he got Ludwig. He was named after Beethoven. That's a tough name. So he went.
Tough.
Still goes by Louis. But at any rate, my mother married. I think when I was 15 or maybe even 16, she married a cellist who was. He liked more kind of. What's the word? More mainstream classical music. You know, he liked a lot of Brahms and Beethoven and Handel, and you know, so there was classical influence around, and I would listen to it. He would have people over to play string quartets, and I would get out the music and look at it, and I'd usually fall asleep. But I liked it, but it didn't call out to me in particular. But yet, years later, when I found myself getting to know someone like Edgar Meyer or Joshua Bell, it came in handy because I had some idea of what that music was supposed to sound like, and I could imagine it. Edgar's a real big part of my life because he plays the upright bass, right? So he plays it in a way, he's so good at it, there really isn't the repertoire for him to play. Where if you're a great violinist, there's
That sounds familiar, right, Bela?
tons of great material
repertoire,
for
yeah.
a great pianist, cellist. There's a great repertoire. So he's had to create his own, find his own way to play stuff that's at the level of his technique. So for me, he's a great person to talk to about taking an instrument that has no place in classical music, because playing those pieces on upright bass is equally unusual. And so he's been a lot of help in thinking about fingerings and thinking about how to, you know, what kind of license you can really take where you should and where you shouldn't. And great composer to encourage me to write and to think about an orchestra as an option.
You started on the guitar, though, before you
did.
picked up the banjo. And what kind of stuff were you playing on the guitar?
Right, so I heard the banjo before I got the guitar, and I fell in love with it on the Beverly Hillbillies. Thought it was just unbelievable, but I never told anybody, and I never thought I could ever play it, so I never mentioned it. It was a secret. But it turned out that my mother, who had played some camp, she was a camp counselor for a while, and she had played some folk songs, some kumbaya type stuff. So I begged her to teach me to play guitar, which she said no for a long time. But finally she bent, and we went and got a couple of classical guitars to play, got string guitars, and I started taking some guitar lessons. And then I had the Beatles books with the chord charts written in them. I tried to figure out the chords, and then eventually there's a guy upstairs in the building who gives guitar lessons. So he was an electric guitar player. He started teaching me the blues scale in all the inversions. So when I came to the banjo, I was used to this idea.
That's a really big deal that he had guitar experience before banjo, because guitar and banjo are very similar. You know, I don't know why I just did this, but they are similar. And having that point of reference that he could then take all that stuff, like he already knew the blues scale, he could then put that on banjo, all that stuff was no doubt a huge, huge help for him and jump-started him like crazy.
Idea of scales and inversions, which was very helpful. But I would never have gotten a banjo if it wasn't for my grandfather bought one at a garage sale, and he said, "Oh, you like the guitar? I saw this. I got it. Maybe you'd like it." And I was like, "Wow, oh my God, there it is." I had never told him or anybody that it was my favorite instrument because I never thought I could play it. So all of a sudden, it was deposited in my hands, and I just went to town.
And how long before you could play the Ballad of Jed Clampett?
10 seconds.
That was pretty quick. But the question is, how well was I playing it? It takes a while to get smooth with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of first you just have to start super simple with the basic rolls. We call the rolls the arpeggios that you can play with with the right hand. So a roll might be
Talking the wrong camera.
first you learn that, and then you learn to change chords. Just those two hand positions because one's open, and one roll is enough to get you going.
Yeah.
So then I started going to folk
That's all I know.
hootenannies, and I'd sit in the back with my banjo, and I'd do the two rolls I knew. The other one I knew. That's called the forward-backward roll.
Okay.
Because you go forward, thumb, index, middle, hit your thumb, and then you come backward, middle, index, thumb. 8 notes.
At least I know that one thing that that he said in this interview. I understand that.
The other was the thumb in and the thumb out roll, which goes like this.
Oof. I don't know, guys. Should I try and follow along? Okay, what was that, Bela?
The thumb in and the thumb out roll, which goes like this.
The thumb in and the thumb out roll? What it? Jeez.
The other was the thumb in and the thumb out roll, which goes like this.
I don't know if I can do this, guys. Okay, let's try this. I might have to cut this out if it's too embarrassing for me to listen. Oops. Whoops.
So I could, armed with that in my arsenal, I could go irritate a whole room full of folkies.
Now, your wife plays a different style.
Yeah.
Is it clawhammer?
She's a clawhammer player. Yeah, there's a lot of different names for it. Frailing, clawhammer, drop
yeah.
thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where I'm using 3 finger picks, 2 metal picks on my first and second finger, and a thumb pick, which
Rick's producer be like, stop goofing off.
happens to have a metal casing, but it's a plastic pick on the end.
Interesting.
So I pluck up with these fingers and down with my thumb towards each other. With clawhammer, you go down with your fingernails. You don't use picks at all. Down with your fingernails and pluck with the thumb. So it's down, pluck, and she's great at it. So I don't do that around the house.
You haven't
She's got
played
it down.
that way at all, though. Really.
I tried a little bit when I was wooing her, and then it suddenly dawned on me that I didn't need to be doing that. She was great at it, and I should.
That's how you get a girlfriend, guys. You learn her banjo style.
Now, does she play 3 finger ever?
She doesn't do 3 finger. She does a 2 finger, which came before 3 finger. Yeah, in that world, it's ironic because these very simple folk styles that were happening, well, deceptively simple because they're harder than you think. They might seem pretty remedial if you think of the fact that on 4-string banjo people were playing ragtime music and early jazz and all kinds of chord changes and all kinds of stuff. It's quite different. But these folk styles got so sophisticated and so curious and interesting, and there's so much in them. So she's into that. She's into the history. She's into something called round peak style, which is a style we're pretty sure maybe originated in the Gambia. Mm-hmm. It came over somehow, ended up in North Carolina, became a predominant style of a certain region. But if you go to different regions of like North Carolina, you'll find different clawhammer styles.
I've listened to you two play together, and it's fascinating to hear the 2 different styles played simultaneously.
Yeah, it's harder than you'd think. I mean, we're both rippling, so it's 2 people rippling, doing their versions of rippling, and you're trying to figure out how to lock those ripples together.
Yeah.
I mean, old-time music is kind of relaxed. So, for instance, if you looked at it, if you thought about a metronome, you might be on the back end of that beat. You think about drummers that play on the back end of the beat or drummers that play on the front end of the beat. Bluegrass is almost always on the front end of the beat, although it doesn't have to be metronomic. It can slow down a little at the chorus and pick back up for the solos.
At the front of the beat, also called rushing.
It's still charging.
No, I'm kidding.
Song's probably going to
Don't get mad, guys. I can already see the comments. Oh, it's not rushing. You can barely wipe your butt. It's
faster than it started. Old-time music might end up slower, and it's fine. So taking our 2 points of view and getting them together was not the easiest in the beginning. We had to kind of we had to both creep up on the metronome from opposite directions.
That's fascinating.
And once we got there, we learned how to listen to each other, and I learned to relax a little bit, and she learned to push a little bit. We found our center, and then we started building arrangement for songs using different kinds of banjos. Maybe I'd use a baritone banjo. I could play under her, take a bass roll, or a cello banjo. Or she'd play the cello banjo, and I'd use a piccolo banjo. And so we started building this whole little set of songs that used the different kinds of banjos. And we honestly couldn't think of a banjo duo that did. I mean, maybe someone would do it for a couple of songs. Doc Watson would maybe do it with Merle Watson for one.
all the Bela Fleck, Abigail Washburn records, by the way, are fantastic. Highly recommend those.
One song, or other people we know would do that for a special song, but there was no double banjo band, so in a weird way it was as challenging as trying to figure out how to play a duo with a kora player, or figure out how to play with Chick Corea the first time or the first decade. There's a whole different set of challenges. You're just trying to make complete music with whatever person you find yourself collaborating with.
Bela, you have a lot of banjos around here, but one in particular is sitting right over there. That is the most insane looking thing, this bass banjo.
Oh my God.
Well, I just have to say,
with that?
the best thing about the story is, just to show you what a good match Abigail and I are, is I called
They didn't include that in the final cut? I wanted to hear that.
her up from, I think it was upstate New York, this great store, and I said, Abby, they have a bass banjo here in this store. And she said, don't come home without it. And I knew she was the one for me. It's the second bass banjo I've run across. It's actually in the same store.
Wait, what is the store in upstate New York?
I need to go to the store.
It's in Rochester.
Okay.
It's Bernunzio's.
Okay. I'm from
Yeah.
Rochester.
Okay, so right behind the hall there, where they do the concerts.
I need to go to the store, although it's probably going to bankrupt It's gonna bankrupt me.
The school, Eastman
Yeah,
School.
Eastman, yep.
But right behind in the alley, if you walk out the alley to the street, you see all these banjos in the window, and this guy has just a bunch of phenomenal old banjos and stuff. And for some reason, that's where he is. And so one day I was walking around, before sound check, and oh my God, I didn't know this place was here. I'd heard about it. I didn't know where it was, and I went in and I've never gone there and not come out with a banjo.
The case is amazing. I mean, the case is as impressive as the banjo.
The case is wild. So he told me that the banjo was
Show us the case, bro.
from 1905.
Okay.
Back in the day when banjo was king.
Yeah.
And it was commissioned for a vaudeville group, a banjo quartet of women. And I don't remember what the name of or maybe we didn't even know what the name of the group was, but it's a copy of A White Lady. So it was 4 ladies, and I believe they all played white lady banjos, and they commissioned this giant bass banjo. So now we have it.
Bela, what makes a great banjo? What do you look for in a banjo?
A lot of times people have a perception of banjos being super bright and crisp. I like banjos that have some depth, so there's something supporting. I mean, you need the brightness, especially if you're playing in a group and you want to be heard. You can't be too dark, or you just disappear. You just don't hear the instrument. But I like for it to have the potential to have some body and some depth. The other thing about banjos is some of them are not responsive. They sound really good if you play at a flat.
What do you mean by not?
So they have dynamically, when you start to hit them hard, they have no place to go. They don't go any further. You hit a wall. It's like you're being compressed by the instrument because it doesn't have any more to give. And so when you get into these instruments like the one I play here, this is a pre-war 1937 to 1940 Gibson Style 75. It was called a Style 75 because it cost $75 back then. Now it would be at least a $100,000 banjo. These instruments from that period, that Gibson period of the great master tones, which Earl Scruggs played as well, they keep giving. You hit it harder, you get more. And more than any other banjo I've ever played. And that's really satisfying. You can play it soft and it's lovely, and you can, depending on how you tighten the head, you can get a beautiful bell sound out of it, or you can have a rich, gaudy sound out of it, but the dynamic potential is greater. And I think you find that with acoustic guitars. Sometimes you have a beautiful guitar, you play it in the shop, and you try to play it with people, and it just doesn't give it. It doesn't give it. And pianos, too. Some of them just don't go any further when you hit them harder, and they're no fun because you can't. You're stuck here, between here and here. You can't go to there.
Does this have an ebony fingerboard on it?
I think so, yeah.
And
the neck was made by a great luthier named John Monteleone, because the necks from the 1930s aren't necessarily going to hold up as well as the pot. We call this part the pot, which is like the drum. But the necks, they were also almost always flat fingerboards until the 40s. And this builder who makes a lot of great guitars, I don't know if you know about John Monteleone. He's on Long Island. He studied with D'Acquisto and all the archtop guys. He made this neck for me back then in 1981, and he made it arched for me at my request, and he made it bigger, and he made it out of mahogany. And when he coupled it with this old banjo, something great happened. Because you could have a great feeling neck that's perfect, feels good, and you put it on the instrument, and it just doesn't happen. But
I'm like drooling right now, guys.
For some reason it happened. And then on top of that, I've played it since then. Since 81, this is the main banjo I've played. So it gets used to ringing, and it gets used to being played in every register, which if you only play on the white keys on a piano, the black keys aren't going to sound very good because the instrument isn't being used to being resonated on those frequencies. But in this banjo, since I play in all the keys and I'm all over the neck, it's quite used to being played, and it's fairly alive in most registers.
do you ever have to have it refretted? Have you ever had it refretted?
Although I went to stainless steel.
Yeah, those are stainless steel frets.
Yeah, which have lasted
forever.
much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Do you
before that I
like
used
the feel
nickel.
of stainless steel frets?
I can't say that I think it's better in terms of the sound or the feel, but the fact that I haven't had to have a fret job in like 12 years and they're still almost brand new is pretty hard to argue with. And in terms of whatever sound, yeah, sometimes I pick up one of my banjos that has nickel frets and I go, well, I think I can hear what I like about nickel. It's a 3 to 5% factor. And the other thing is, since a banjo is a machine and can be changed to the way you want it to sound, I've eventually incorporated the sound of the steel of the stainless steel into the way I tweak the banjo. So I've got it sounding the way I want it to sound with stainless steel.
And about changing the head, do you ever change the head? How
Yeah,
often
I
do you
do.
that?
I do, and I talked to Earl Scruggs about this a lot. He lived about 2 miles from here, just up Franklin Road, where you probably came in, and he said that
Figure out where Bela lives now. He's got calling out specific roads.
you know, people argue about the heads. They say, "Oh yeah, you know, you got to get a skinhead. That's the real thing," you know. But he said it was a nightmare because every day he'd show up somewhere, he'd open up
Yeah, I've had experience with skinheads. They are terrible.
the case. He never knew what he was going to see. Sometimes it would be sagging, and he'd have to crank it up. He had to carry it around a light bulb on a electric socket,
To heat it up.
and he would heat it up to try. But on a bad day, he would open it up, and it would be split. And a head takes, you know, well more than a day to get
break in.
to get breaking in. So he would have to carry heads and put them on and be tightening all the way up to the show in between sets, just to be able to perform. And then he had to be careful if he was going to go to a different humidity area, a different temperature. Then he'd have to, you know, loosen it up so it didn't split. So he said the first day that he put on a plastic head, he never looked back. He said, "Yeah, you could talk about how great this, but those heads would sound good one day out of 20. This head sounds better than it sounded most days.
Right.
But that one day was pretty great, but it wasn't worth the hell he went through."
And how often do you actually have to tune that?
So I change it. Maybe 9 months to a year and a half, depending on. I'm always a little nervous to do it because it's an old instrument, but it's fine. And for the first month to 6 weeks, I'm going to just guess, I have to go around and tighten it less and less each time. And right now it's in a place where it's settled in pretty good. I put it on in the summer. It's starting to feel pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah. But there's a point when, and Earl Scruggs also said, I like a new head. Like a lot of people are like,
I want to get more into banjo setup, like not the insane parts of it, but at least enough that I'm competent, you know, because I can do all the basic stuff. I can change a head. I can do pretty much whatever, but I'm not great with like changing things to get specific tonal results, I guess. So I just need to experiment with that.
I don't ever change the head once it sounds good. Well, I like the sparkle that it gives it. Probably partly because I like a dark banjo. I need the sparkle of a new head just to be heard and have presence. So the combination of a new head but nice and loose is a good thing for me.
Okay, I want to ask you too about your miking of it and how you choose the mics and the mic
I knew Rick would ask about this.
pre's to record your banjo because
Sure.
I'm very interested in that. If you have a dark banjo, you have a ribbon mic there and you have a condenser,
Right.
a KM84 there. No,
Right. Well, it depends what you're doing.
Yep.
So like when I was playing with Shakti, all I used was this ribbon mic because I was all by myself, and that banjo could be as big as I wanted it to be, which is pretty big, bigger than it really is, because this mic in proximity gives it a little bass boost, which I love, especially when I'm playing solo. If it's a thin sound out there, I'm not having a good time.
No.
So, but that would be a disaster if I was playing with a bluegrass band. You wouldn't hear a note I was playing. The fiddle and the mandolin and the dobro would completely wipe it out. So in that situation, I have to use something brighter. And I might use something like an 84. That would be a possibility. For live, I'm going to lean towards something a little bit brighter in bigger groups. When I play with Abby, I don't use the fat head. I don't.
Interesting.
Because she has very deep banjos, and they can wipe me out. So I have to make sure I have something clear enough because of my dark sound. She has a dark sound too, and so it's like voicing things. And then I like multiple mics. If I can get two mics, like there's a guy named Bill Wolf who was one of the great engineers of bluegrass music who recorded a lot of Tony Rice's records, which were spectacularly recorded.
Yeah.
He was a fan of double miking everything, but not placing them all over the place, just putting them right next to each other and getting a double vision view of what the instrument sounded like from its optimum spot. And
It's really interesting. I wonder what the purpose of that is.
that can be a great, and exactly the same mic. He said he'd rather have two of the same mic than one great mic and something else. He'd rather have two of the lesser mic.
Do you
because
phase
something about-
align them
Yeah,
ever,
so
or do you?
I'm a geek, and I go in and I line up the waveforms because sometimes I'll use two, sometimes I've even done a recording where I was in that room with 6 mics on the banjo.
Okay.
And as you keep adding mics, the phase becomes more and more important. You
Yes.
have a couple of them, and you might get away with it if they're a little bit apart, and it might even sound good and give you some top. But once you start adding mic after mic, They've got to be lined up. So the waveforms all have to start in exactly the right same place. And then you can have a lot of mics and you can pan them, and each one can have a different color. And so in this case, it was something with me and Abigail, just the two of us, and I had space. She was on one side, I had the whole other side, and I could pan all the way from 100 to, say, 20 of the other side, and hers the same on the other way.
Huh.
And it sounded great. And it was a big sound, where if you just had one mic of us on each side, it might have sounded a little small, even if beautifully recorded. It filled up the whole space.
When I
That is fascinating. I really want to mess with that.
came in, you had a third mic up here.
Right. I have the Sanken 100K mic, which I used on a session for an opera singer, Chuck Ainley, great engineer. Stuck it up there, and I'd never seen it. And when I came back to edit and listen to the takes, I was like, "What's that?" And so I got a pair of them, and so I use them for when I really need it to be bright and make sure. I'm also missing some highs after all these years of performing, mixing and editing, and playing on stages with loud amps and earphones. You know,
Yeah.
we play with earbuds. So I need to hear a little more highs than I used to, too. So it's not what everyone else is hearing, but it's helpful. Probably
And
gets it closer to what other people want to hear, because other people don't want to hear it as dark as I do.
Well, I hear your banjo as being dark to me.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just because I'm not hearing all the high end that I used to hear.
Possible. I mean, it's dark for a banjo, but it's bright for another instrument.
When you're using those mics, what mic pre's are you going through?
I use Graces a lot. They used to be my second choice, and I would use the Avalons.
Yeah.
I have several other
737s.
things. Yeah, they're great. The Avalons seem to have a certain magic to them that's lovely, but those Graces are just great. They're just perfect. I trust them. I know what they sound like. They don't surprise me with anything, and everything I've ever run through them sounded great. But we also have some Millennias, which I don't think sound as good. I have some Neves that don't sound as good. I don't think they're from the right period, or that
Bela just burning prospective sponsorships.
maybe Rupert wasn't involved at this point.
I'm just kidding. He obviously does not need sponsorships.
I have something called a Night Pro, which holds up quite well. I don't know if they're still made, but they're quite nice. They're very much like the Massenburg. But I love this stuff. There was a point when we were making records, and engineers would say, "Well, you can't do that." I'd go, "Next engineer, you know, I don't want to be told I can't do something, or I'm not allowed to something. Or you can't pan, you can't get these balanced. What are you talking about? You can balance it, you know. I want it darker. No, you can't do that. It won't work. You know, whatever it is. I just wanted to find. It just made me want to have control of my own music, so I started engineering my own stuff, and I got to a point where I could do pretty good, and I love it. I love microphones, and I love editing and mixing and all that stuff.
So you mix you'll mix your own records too,
Mostly,
right?
although
Yeah.
this last couple of records, just because of the sheer time it takes and the fact that I don't get to play the banjo if I'm mixing. I might have a month where I don't play, and then all of a sudden I got to play with one of these guys. The people that I play with are serious, so I got to show up and be good. So that's not going to work for the next portion of my life. I got to get help. So this album is the first time I've tried that, and I had two different mixers who helped me on the two projects, and they did a great job. Took a lot of notes, and they've turned out well. Now, I probably, if I had the time and could have done them myself, I might think they might have turned out 5% better, just because of the sheer amount of time. Even though they're better engineers than me, because I would have spent so much time on it, but I don't have that kind of time, So it's time for me to embrace that.
And where's the definitive place for you to listen to these things? Is on your studio monitors here in the car? Where do you make your final decision on something?
It's a summing kind of thing, because you can't trust anything, because every time you go somewhere else, it's a whole different mix. So at some point, you have to be okay with the fact that it's not going to work for everybody in every space. But I used to use these Myers speakers a lot, because did you know Roger Nichols?
Yeah.
Yeah. Roger...
They have very similar friend groups. Bela has said like 12 different names, and Rick has known every single person. It's kind of funny.
We spent some time together, and he advised me to get a pair of them. He said, when you
I wish I had mutual friends with either of these guys.
use these Myers and you reference with those, you bring it to the mastering engineer, and they don't have anything to do. It's already pretty much there. So what you're hearing is what you get. And I used them for 10, 15 years, for a long time, and I just started getting tired of them. And so I got these ATC ones, and then recently I get these Focals, and they're all fun, but I don't trust any of them like I trusted the Myers, because I knew it so well. And I also, because of this high end that I'm missing, thought it was okay to get a little extra assistance in that area. So I've got some really nice headphone preamps and some really nice headphones that are better than most people would hear. But I think I need that because my hearing is not as good as most people's anymore.
Do you listen on the phone? Because so many people listen on their phones. Will you play things on your phone?
Yeah, like for instance, there's this Edgar Zakir Rakesh piece that there's a video for that I did a mix for, and while they're working on the edits, I'm assessing the mix through my iPhone, and when I go to mix it, I'm going to do some kind of composite between what I hear on the speakers and what I knew it sounded like on the iPhone. Obviously, I'm going to have to turn up the bass and the low end of the tablas for it to sound good on iPhones, but I don't want it to sound terrible on other speakers, so you look for that middle ground, a little more than you would want, but still good, you know, for the speakers.
Would you call yourself an audiophile?
I'm picky. I love when stuff sounds good.
Right.
I hate this idea that it doesn't matter what it sounds like. I mean, I do think that the better the music is, the less it matters, but I think there's something lovely about delivering something that really sounds gorgeous. That even if nobody can hear it, I know.
Wow.
You know, I want to put, and you know, it used to be that you would work on something for till you were done and nobody would hear it until you delivered it onto the world, and that seems to be a forgotten thing. You know, it's like if we tape the live show. Flecktones used to always play new music on our shows. Then all of a sudden the internet came along, and now people started recording them, and by the time we recorded it, it was old news. Everyone had heard the song, and not only that, we'd put out the record and they said, the first time they played it was better. You know, It wasn't better. They just got used to it and they fell in love with that version of it, which we all do with all kinds of recordings. But it was demoralizing. So we stopped, you know, playing new music on the shows, and we would only do it at rehearsal and not play it on the shows.
Do you think it affects the way, because so many artists have told me the same thing, that the fact that they can't play things live now to try them out, to get people's response, because a lot of it is that they would craft the arrangements based on the audience response, which they don't get anymore because they can't let the songs out there.
Right, you don't discover till you play the piece in front of an audience that they're going to want to applaud here, so you better leave a little space before you bring in the next thing, or they're never going to hear this next part of the song. That kind of stuff. But I'm also comfortable with the studio version being different from the live version, that you can change it live. I'm just not comfortable with the idea that you come to see the show and people say, wow, I love this music, and then the artist says, don't listen to the record. We didn't know it back then. It's not, the live show's so much better. I hate to hear that. To me, that means they didn't take the time, because you couldn't get it to be great.
Right.
And I think if someone gets one of my records, I'm going to think it's really good. And when they come hear it live, it might be different, but not necessarily better. I want it to be. But the other thing is it's a rehearsal for real life.
Yeah.
If you take the time to get it right, then the band learns. And pretty soon you're playing it better than that, because now you're working from here. Before you were working from here. That process of recording it means that you spend all this time figuring out what really wasn't quite working.
Is there one person, this is my last question to you, is there one person whose opinion you value the most to listen to something before you put it out?
Well, for a long time, it was Richard Dodd. You know Richard?
Yeah.
He recently closed up his
I swear they have the same social circle.
studio and started doing stuff at home, and so I've started doing some different mastering things. But I love him, and he was always really good at catching things that I had missed, either because of my tinnitus or just because he could say at 2 minutes and 31 seconds .4, the stereo image on the banjo changed. Can you go back and look at the tracks and see what happened there? And sure enough, there's a crossfade on one of the stereo mics and not the other.
Wow.
Or this whole mix feels like it's slightly to the left, or the bass is amorphous. Maybe it should be in mono. Everything else can be in stereo, but try putting it in the middle. You know, just something like that. Or the reverb suddenly cut off, or I hear a sound, or whatever. But also just the sort of, you know, what do you think?
Right.
Do you think we've got something here? Do you think I need to go back to the drawing board? So I would always go to him before the record was done for a pre-mastering listen, when I was like 90% done with the mix, and then I'd come back, and after listening in his studio with his ears and his notes, I could come back and make the adjustments, and it was ready to go. The other person is Abigail, because she listens to it as a human being that likes music, but isn't, like, I want my music to appeal to people that don't listen to jazz or modern classical music or world music. And she's a lot more sophisticated than she used to be, but she's always had great taste. So if she comes in and listens, a lot of times I don't want anyone to hear it till it's really, really done. I'm okay if nobody ever hears it, as long as I think it's good. So, but if she comes to hear it, it matters to me what she thinks.
Well, Bela, it's been a pleasure to sit here with you, and an honor to meet you in person.
Thank you.
And
Same here. Same
and hear
here.
you play this close is great.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for caring about what I do.
Cool.
It's a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, everybody.
All right. Final notes. I know I didn't react as much in this one, but I knew I had quite a bit of video to get through, so I was a little bit quieter. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. You guys can decide. But final notes. Bela's really good. Rick Beato's really good at interviewing. That was a fantastic job. He asked all the right questions. He's music Rogan for for sure. Joe Rogan of music. Yeah, and there was so much you could learn from that interview. I would definitely watch that again. They touch on so many different subjects, and Rick knows the right questions to ask. And yeah, Bela if you're a banjo player, that's like a master class for you to learn from. And you can learn so much stuff for sure. So anyways, thank you for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, you were awesome. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, you can like and subscribe and all that stuff. I'd appreciate it. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.